Hi, this is Shay, and in this recording we're talking about how to select the best gear for your account for sleeping in, for filling in rallies, for defense. There's two things that you're going to need to know. One, the comparison of attack and defense on your account. The second thing, what your reports look like. If you go up to your power and then click boost, you're going to see your overall stats. I want you to look at your overall attack and your overall defense and compare those two numbers. If they're about the same, you're done with this section. If one of those stats is a lot lower, such as 100k, 200k, just take a mental note of that stat and keep it in mind when we look at your reports. The reason is if you were to take 100k and apply it to each of these stats, the one that is the lowest would have the largest impact on your account because there's not as much of that stat on your account. Right now, most of the accounts have about, I'm guessing about 600k attack, 600k defense on their accounts, and maybe 200k health. Okay, so moving on to number 2. I want you to go find a report that you have in your account of a recent rally. Okay, and the reason why the reports are important is because you're going to take a look at what side, whether it's your kills, what you're killing, or your losses, which side has the greatest amount of numbers, and is it much larger than the other one. And the reason why this is important is because the side that has the most amount of numbers, whether it's your losses or your kills, has by far a greater amount of number of troops that will react to the stat that you're adding. So to make this simple, this second part comes down to basically your gut instincts of what you already know. You look at a report, you cringe at it, you're like, oh, I did so bad, I lost so many. Do defense. If you look at a report and you're like, oh, I did so good, I killed them, do attack. If you look at a report and you're like, oh, that's okay, it's almost there, or I almost won, that almost point, I would personally do attack, but you can do defense. Here's where it gets interesting. Is you're already looking at your reports, but many of you may not be thinking of when to switch the type of gear that you're using, rather than just going all defense, all attack. On how gear comes out, if you've noticed, every single time gear comes out, it comes out weapon, helm, armor, foot, and accessory in that order. And if you take a look at the gear, it releases the most powerful gear in the order of most powerful to the weakest. And so a lot of times when you're trying to adjust, you're going to be fine-tuning your account. Every single time gear releases, you're going to pick a gear, you're going to level it up. The next one releases and you're going to pick the gear and level it up. So at some point, if you're focusing on defense, to actually switch over and fine-tune on the attack. And that's going to be as you approach your no burn point, that is your time to switch over to attack. For people who buy a lot of packs, probably go to attack right off the back with the weapon, depending on what your reports say, if not the helm. For people who are lighter spenders, you probably go to attack later in the accessories. And at that point, if you have an extra weapon in your gear and you can level it up, you may want to go back and look at redoing your weapon, the number 1 piece of gear, for attack, depending on how you're doing. A quick note on debuff gear. I'm not a big fan of debuff gear for defending because I can't always anticipate where the game is going with the debuffs, and it's expensive to level up. So I stay away from debuffs. I usually do solo attack gear or defense. Right now, we did test on an account. It was a pretty good account. It's a small rally lead account, but the debuffs on that particular account, it was right in between solo attack gear and defense gear. So it was a good middle ground. I always prefer to keep the stats on my own troops versus debuffing someone else, unless I'm at the wonder. Our next recording will be over reports. I'll talk you through everything that I look through a report to pick gear and etc. And give us a like, check out the website. We'll see you then.